Alright, so I want to react to this article today. It's 3 positions that the Bengals will regret not trading for at the deadline. As always, when we go through these articles, we go ahead and read, what the position is, I give my thoughts and opinions on if I agree or disagree with the article, and kind of where I feel when it comes to that certain, position or group or whatever they have to say. So let's go ahead and get right into it. My 3 positions, I'm going to think that they're going to say. I haven't looked at this article yet. But my 3 positions I think they're going to go with has to be tight end. That's number 1. That's not even a question. With Irv Smith struggling this year so far, they have to go ahead and talk about tight end. I mean, we've talked about it plenty of times on this channel. Running back is the second one because of Samaje Perine. I feel like especially they're going to cover that. And then the last one, maybe safety? See, the last position, I see. The thing is, no. Offensive line. What am I saying? Offensive line. But then it's also, I don't know. Because, left tackle, Orlando Brown's been doing a lot of injuries, right, with his groin. And I guess not really dealing with it too much. He's dealt with it over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So that's something you could say. But then at the same time, then, you got Jackson Carman. You got Cody Ford who are filling in for, not Jackson Carman, Cody Ford filling in. But you also do have Jackson Carman. You got rid of L. Collins for a reason, so I don't really think they would have traded for an offensive lineman anyway. They kind of want to keep the guys they have, and they like the guys they have. So, I'm going to be interested to see where they go with that direction. Because I can only see 2 positions, tight end and running back, and there's, plentiful reasons why. First one, interior defensive line. Okay. So, not edge rusher, but more in the aspect of the DJ Reader inside, which is actually another reason why Myles Murphy, yet to get to the point that we need him to get to, is a problem because we've been trying to put him inside a lot more during these games to kind of be that interior pass rusher for us, that interior guy on the defensive line. He has not been able to been able to get there just yet. Now, he's a rookie. Keep that in mind. Over time, he'll get better and he'll progress over the year. But that is definitely one of those things that has been a problem, is that interior defensive line for that said reason. We have, say we have injuries. We don't have any too bad injuries interior because Joseph Asai is more off the edge as an edge rusher. He's obviously dealt with injuries. Keith Davis-Gaither is more in the linebacking core. That's not really on the edge. We just really haven't had somebody on the edge, or someone inside, I meant to say, that really would be that dominant that would get us. Obviously, DJ Reader, BJ Hill has been great. But other than that, it hasn't really had anybody inside. Now, the thing is, right, here's what I'd say about interior defensive line, right? Because we did not see any interior defensive linemen get traded at the deadline. We saw Chase Young, who's an edge guy. We also saw Montez Sweat get traded, who's an edge guy. We haven't seen any interior defensive linemen. So to this point that we're going to regret not trading for interior defensive linemen, I don't really think any were available. Especially not available to that would actually help us or benefit us in any way. The thing that gets a little fishy that's interesting when you start talking about oh yeah, you should have traded for interior defensive lineman. Well, first off, you got to understand that not every single interior defensive lineman is going to be able to run our scheme, right? There's a thing called versatile. Versatile means you can do a little bit of everything. And some defensive linemen can do that. Not many can. Okay, not many can run a 3-4, 4-3, Tampa 2 different, systems. Tampa 2 is a bad example. But 3-4, 4-3, defensive line. Some guys can, some guys can't, right? Some guys are really fast, and when you're really fast as a interior defensive lineman, you're great for a 4-3 system. When you're slower, but more like a stronger guy, you're better for a 3-4. So when you split the hairs there and you realize that, okay, now, you got to find someone who is either versatile or someone who runs our system, that splits down half the league already, right? That's number 1. Number 2, they have to come in here, learn lose defense, and I'm not saying lose defense is impossible to learn, it's just a very good defense. And there's different levels you have to get to, and honestly a lot of loose defense you learn over time. You can't really be taught it in a week or a day. You have to learn it over time through communication, through playing it, and it's a very good defense, but again, it's not that complicated, I will say, but it's definitely still up there, right? It's going to take some time to learn it. So then that's also a thing. Then we have to trade for that guy. He's going to spend some cap. I don't really regret not trading for an interior defensive lineman. I disagree with this first point for those numerous reasons I just mentioned. I think, the other two positions, tight end and running back, would be a lot more of a regret, but not really in the context of interior defensive line. There's a lot of factors that go into that you can't just simply say, well, you should have traded for this guy. Like, you got to give me a list of who's available, and let's say you have given me a list of 20 players available for interior defensive line. Split that list in half, because that's probably only half of those guys can actually play our system and do our system correctly and not be a liability. Now, split that list in half, because only half of those guys would probably fit our system. And I'm saying run our system and fit our system are completely different. You might be able to run our system, you can't fit our system. There's a difference. So it's a lot more than just, well, you should have gone and get someone to help out, I don't think that's, accurate. I think if they wanted to, there are guys on free agency they could bring in, but I think they like the guys they have. Cam Sample is really stepping up. We obviously had the injury to Josh, and we also had the injury to Jay recently. But other than that, a lot of those guys are stepping up. So let's go to the next one. I don't want to home in too much on that one. Tight end. I agree, right? When you really look at it, Gesicki, I know Hunter Henry, Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, were all players that were talked about as potential players the Bengals could trade for before the trade deadline. And I agree that, those were all viable options. But what I will say, the big fat but here is, well, yes, I agree they were viable options to trade for. You also got to keep in mind, we don't know if the Patriots wanted to get rid of Mike Gesicki, or they want to get rid of Hunter Henry. So, again, I'm sure there were avenues that they could have went through, but you got to also keep in mind, especially with them recently promoting Tanner Hudson to the active roster, that they just want to kind of go within their own unit, right? And we do have enough receivers on our roster. Obviously, Chase, T, Tyler Boyd, Yoshi, Chuck Sizzle is going to come back eventually, right? We have enough receivers on our roster to really run a lot more just open sets on offense. So running it with a 5-receiver set, 6-receiver set, right? And kind of phasing out that tight end position. Now, don't get me wrong, tight end's still important, obviously, for blocking purposes and running single, running under center and being able to do stretch plays and stuff like that. But that's, again, why they brought in Tanner Hudson, or they promoted up Tanner Hudson, because when Tanner Hudson was in there, he actually looked pretty good. He just didn't get really many opportunities. And I think that's kind of what they're going for, is between that and obviously Irv Smith. Going through the, Irv Smith, so far he hasn't looked that great. But even though last week's fumble, and yes, I was upset in the moment, I was ticked off in the moment that he fumbled it, he still had some good catches in that game. And I think if he can get going a little bit, even 50% better than he is right now, I think we will be fine for the rest of the season, right? You go back and look at the Hayden Hurst, right? Hayden Hurst, obviously our tight end, before Irv Smith last year. Well, that's not. Last year was our tight end, we have Irv Smith now. At most, he was getting, 600 yards that season, and I think a couple touchdowns. So it's not like we really need too much production, or we give too much production to the tight end. Now, once you go back to the older days, with CJ and obviously Eifert just couldn't stay healthy, but Eifert obviously was a touchdown machine. You go back to those ones. Then you talking about utilizing the tight ends more, but also you talking about different coaching staffs back then. So, overall, I don't think it's going to destroy us that we didn't trade for a tight end. I think it's definitely one of those situations where if our offense starts struggling in any way, it's going to be a talking point. But I don't think it's really going to destroy us. We do need our tight ends to step up. Tanner Hudson now is getting promoted. We also need to see a little bit more from Irv Smith, but I don't think it's going to be detrimental and it's going to really impact us too much. The last one they have here is running back, and I think this is a great thing to talk about. And I will say to the cows come home, and I know it's over, trade deadline's done with. Ryan, you got to get over it, man. We didn't trade back for Samaje Perine. And it's it. It is what it is, right? At the end of the day, we didn't trade for him back, and we don't know at the end of the day if Denver was willing to even trade for him, right? I mean, so I'd trade him to us. We have no idea. Denver could be, saying, hey, listen, we're not going to do it, and we're just going to keep our guys. And that's kind of what it looked like they did with most of their guys. There was rumors of them trading Jerry Jeudy, trading away Courtland Sutton, and they refused to do either. So I think at the end of the day, that could kind of spell that there might not have been an option to trade for him. And I will still say, to the point of, we should have went and got Derrick Henry. I still disagree with that a million bazillion times. I don't think Derrick Henry would have came in and fit our offense correctly and been that productive for us. I know he's a great running back. He's an amazing running back, right? And yes, he would have made us to a point where it's like, well, how could you stop this Bengals offense? They have a great running back and a great quarterback and great wide receivers. But I just don't think for what we would have to give up / the money he would cost, and all together, it would not be productive for us. I think it would help us win games, don't get me wrong, it would, but for a long-term effect, I don't think it would be a good idea for us, right? And again, I'm looking at this more than just this season. I'm looking at this in future seasons, stuff like that. So again, I know you might say, well, this is a Super Bowl roster, and we have to do everything we can right now to get this roster to a Super Bowl. F the future seasons, just worry about right now. I agree with that, but at the same time, you got to remember that with that mentality, right, that's what a lot of teams do, right? The Browns did that with Deshaun Watson. The Rams did that, and they got a Super Bowl win out of it. Awesome, that's great. But then they've been in turmoil ever since, right? Now, the Browns are finally now getting back up there, but obviously now this season is not going to go good, or not going good. And then obviously next season is pretty much in the crapper because of Deshaun Watson's contract. Again, I think with this roster right now, we should be fine to go win a Super Bowl. Now, our running backs behind, obviously, Joe, is Travion and Chris. Chase Brown is going to be out for the foreseeable future. And it really sucks, too, with him because I really thought he was going to be that guy. And when we didn't trade for a running back, I kind of had that perspective in my head like, well, Chase Brown's going to get more carries. We already got told he was going to get more carries. I was really excited about that. And I thought that, this was the pastor's way forward in a positive way of saying, well, even though we're not trading for another running back, we at least have that option. Right? Because at the end of the day, how I look at players is every player has a ceiling and an upside, right? The upside of Travion Williams is that he's a dual back. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, but his ceiling is above average maybe player, period. Chris Evans, I think it's the same concept. Above average player. Chase Brown, because he's a rookie, because in college he looked so good, because all these things, his ceiling was through the roof, right? There was no real ceiling for him. And that's what I love when we have players like that, because, again, you just don't know what you have, and you might have a gem in the rough, right? But then, again, they get hurt, and then we can't ever see that. And that's what's really disappointing. At the end of the day, if they want another running back or they feel like their running back core is just not it, they can always look at free agency. And there are some free agents that are still available right now who are pretty dang good. So I don't think it's like a detrimental. And again, all three of these spots, I know I'm disagreeing with this article, but I disagree with this article because I think all three spots we did not need to trade for. I don't think though. I don't think we're going to regret not doing it. I think it would have been a nice addition if we did it. That's what I'll say. I think the article kind of painting the picture of we're going to regret it, I think is not true. I think at the end of the day, and just a little key tip here, 3 positions that they will regret not trading for at the deadline. I think it's three positions that we would like to have traded for the deadline, right? Not regret. I don't think this is going to change anything in the long scheme of things for us, but I think it will definitely be those things where maybe, again, a third down and long, we don't convert it, right? And that if that costs us a game, we're going to be talking about it. Like, oh, we could have traded for a tight end. But then you could also make the argument. See, this is why I don't like this argument. You could also make the argument then, well, why didn't you draft Sam Laporta instead of Miles Murphy? Because if you drafted Sam Laporta, then he would have made that catch on that third and long. We wouldn't have to have traded for a tight end. Then you could always make that you could always make that argument, and then you go down a laundry list of problems. Well, you could have traded this guy. You could have signed this guy. Why didn't you sign this guy in free agency? Yeah, so it's a mess. Thank you guys for watching. Now, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like, comment down below. I'll see you guys next one. Peace.